Hello there. Welcome back to another video with teacher Micaela. That's me. And today we have a very important class, which is the simple past and the grammar behind it. First of all, when do we use the simple past? Remember two things. We use the simple past whenever we're talking about something that is finished, and something that we know when it happened. Sometimes we don't need to say it necessarily when it happened, but we know it's there, it's in the context, it's in the conversation. We know. Now, the next thing you have to consider. If you watch the simple present class, you will remember something about the two groups of verbs. Yeah? Remember that with simple tenses, we have one little group over here, small group, which is the verb to be. And then a huge group, which I call them the other verbs. So every other verb that is not the verb to be goes in here, okay? So we're going to talk about these two groups. First, let's go over the small group, the verb to be. So in here, we're going to go over how we conjugate the verb to be. Remember, now it's in the past. If you remember, in the present, the verb to be, we have I am, you are, he, she, it is, we, you, they are, right? In present. Now, in past, we're having I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, you were, they were. Okay? So basically, we just have two. In general, where is for plural and was is for singular. But be careful with this singular, you, because in that case we have were. Okay. The negative, we just add the not, right? Or we can contract it. Instead of saying was not, wasn't. Instead of saying were not, weren't. Okay. Very simple. Question form, again, we use the verb to be. But remember, every time we do a grammatically correct question, we must use what I call the X rule, okay? X rule, where we invert positions with the subject and the verb, in this case, the verb to be. So we have, instead of saying I, let's go into the positive, I was hungry, this example, I'm just gonna use the was hungry. I was hungry. Now, in the negative, I wasn't hungry yesterday. And the question form, again, the X rule, was I hungry? Or I can ask you, were you hungry yesterday night? And then my yes answer, my correct yes answer would be yes. Yes, I was. Or no, I was not, or contracted, wasn't. That's it. Okay. So in here, remember, we can use the WH questions. For example, why? Why were you hungry yesterday? Or when were you hungry yesterday? Or how were... Just kidding. Okay, never mind. So this is the verb to be. Okay, remember, every time you want to express a feeling or a state of being, you use the verb to be. Now, what about with the other verbs like work, run, write, cook, etc., etc.? How do you conjugate them? And remember, they're separated because they're not the same. Positive form, this. Then we must be careful if our verb is either regular verb or irregular verb. That's the thing. If it's regular verb, what is something in common we see in this little square? Something in common, something regular, the same. And it's the ed at the end. Okay, in here we have ed. So all regular verbs and, or they have to end in ed. If the verb in the past doesn't end in ed, it means it's not regular verb. That's so simple, right? Okay, so in here, regular verb, simple, easy, right? Now, what happens if it's irregular? Like the name says, it's irregular. It's not the same. They change or they don't change. What? For example, let's go with a very common one. If I want to say in Spanish, in present, if I want to say in present, I go to school every day. That's not true, but we're going to accept that. I go to school every day, right? Simple present. Now, I want to say that yesterday I to the supermarket instead. So, how do we say go in the past? And it's irregular, and we have it right here. It's went. So I can say, I went to the supermarket yesterday instead. My example's kind of weird. But anyways, so in here, it could be completely different. For example, go, went. Or like I said, it could also be that it doesn't change. For example, hurt. Like, my heart hurts. Why my heart? Because of love. Okay, my heart hurts. If I want to say that yesterday, my heart too, then I say hurt. So they don't change. They are the same. Okay? So but careful with the conjugation in the present. Because see, I'm saying my heart hurts because heart is it. My heart hurts right now. Okay? Or usually. But yesterday my heart hurt. That's it. Really badly. Okay, that's the thing with the positive form. But let's go into a very important thing. The regular verbs. They're so easy to conjugate, right? But be careful with the pronunciation because remember, we don't pronounce the E in the regular verbs. We don't. So in here, especially for Spanish speakers, play it, played. Receive it, received. Yeah? Do you see it? Okay. So let's read them together until here. Okay. So we have played, received, prepared, called, rained, watched. But here's the thing. There are two exceptions. Whenever the regular verb ends in TED or DED, we do pronounce the E. Because then it's going to be really hard to say, at the end. So then we say, visited, rented. Okay? So in those two cases, we do pronounce them. Now, what happens in the negative form? We have some good news. They are the same with all the subjects. That's just with simple past. But in the positive, you have to be careful. Regular or irregular, right? In the negative, we have something called auxiliary verb, or some people call it helping verb, which is did. What was the auxiliary verb in the present? Do you remember? What was it? Can you tell me? It was in the present, it is do, right? Do, which in do we conjugated for he, she, it, and it's does. But in this case, our auxiliary verb is conjugated in the past. So it is still the same auxiliary verb, but conjugated in the past. So in here, because it's negative, we need to add the not. So we can contract it to didn't. I didn't. And then the main verb, which are all of these, they don't have to change. They don't have to be conjugated anymore. They're okay because our auxiliary verb is already conjugated in the past. That's what I'm telling you. Good news. So then we say, instead of, for example, I say, I went to the supermarket yesterday. I didn't go to school. That's it. Okay? And the good thing now is that in the question form it's the same thing because we use the auxiliary verb for negative and for question forms. But remember, X rule, right? Remember question forms in English, X rule. So in here, instead of saying I went, you went, I need to ask in question. So I need the auxiliary verb. So if I use the auxiliary verb did, that means that my main verb, doesn't have to be conjugated. But because auxiliary verb, then I'm gonna say, did you go to school yesterday? And then the answer, yes or no answer, would be yes, I did. No, I did not, or contracted, didn't. Right? So these are closed questions. Remember about open question, closed questions? If you watch the simple present video, you know this. Closed questions or yes or no questions are questions where the answers are going to be yes or no. Now you can do them open questions, which they are with WH questions. So let's go again. Remember, WH questions are always at the beginning of our questions. So in here, we're going to say, hey, when did you go to school yesterday? Or what did you do yesterday? See? And then it's an open question because then you have to answer a little bit longer. And if you answer in the positive form, remember, be careful if the verb is regular or irregular. Okay? How do you know? Teacher, but how can I know when a verb is regular or irregular? Yeah, good question. The thing is that you have to learn them, okay? There are many irregular verbs, okay? But you can start memorizing or learning the common ones. For example, let's go to a short list of common irregular verbs. So here we have a short list of common irregular verbs, and what we care about in here is the second column. Here, we don't care about past participles yet, okay? Not the third column, just the second column. So what is the past of buy? And we know it's irregular, so it's bought. What is the past of can? Ooh, this is an important one. What is the past of can? It's could. Okay, and so on and so on. So the thing is for you to learn the irregular verbs, then to know what the regular verbs are. But of course, whenever you start using English, when you start absorbing more of the language, like reading, listening, writing, and speaking, of course, you're going to start recognizing the words easier and naturally. You're going to start recognizing the words naturally. Okay, for example, for me, with start, I need to start something. But then you want to say in the past, then you're going to know the start is regular because you've seen it in that book and you've heard it so many times. And so that's the importance of listening and absorbing the language. So even though you're not studying by reading a book or you're not studying by watching a movie in English, your brain is absorbing the language. So then it becomes typically what we say, it sounds better. So please absorb the language as much as you can. I am going to put you some links in the description for you to practice the conjugations of verb, either regular or irregular, and to practice the negative, question form, positive form as well. Okay, so in here, what you have to be sure, it's the conjugation in the simple past. Then we're going to do some practice later that has to do with speaking, writing, listening, and reading. But right now, you need to practice the grammar of this tense. Okay? And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments for sure. Okay, then see you in the next video.